I'll be sending you guys like the steps on how to start the project and getting things started. The first thing that we're going to do once we have everything set up is, of course, make sure our HTML is straight, whether it's through Bootstrap. In this case, we copy and pasted code that we worked on yesterday, but we changed the placeholder, the names, and the ID for every field that we're trying to get to populate in our form. Don't forget to include your your method post. Don't forget the CSRF token, something we didn't talk about before, but uh, the what? Oh, and as well as the action that leads to the router and our views function, in which we will refer to our post. So once you understand that this has to lead to the method and the views, that it must be post, and that the username or whatever you're trying to fill out must match for everything in the Bootstrap or whatever you're making to put it in, then we go to models. Models. The most important is the name. Okay.
Respond to the keys in your request document.
Name is most important because it responds to your keys and request
What about
post.
the ID? What is that?
Yeah, what is the ID?
I think that's Bootstrap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, ID means we can like change the style of it, right? So we could go.
Like class.
Yeah, something like class. All right, cool. So then we go to models. First thing we did was make our user class and our movie class. User class was based on the form, so this was our user's username, email, date of birth, password, and confirmed password. And for movies, we did title, year. We did added by, which was our relationship. So we'll make sure we go over that in a second. So of course, this is how you create attributes in that class, and we just link them. We just set how we want them to be. Of course, date and time. The most important thing in this is our first one-to-many relationship. We said, okay, we're gonna need an added by field. Okay, cool. So we decided to call it added by as an attribute, and then call our foreign key function in which we took in our user, which was the class that we were linking it to, and then the name that we wanted to relate this field to, right?
The movie that the user added, right?
The movies that the user added will be called movies added. Okay, so that's our one-to-many relationship. That simply means that no movies can't be added by multiple users, but a user can add multiple movies. Cool. Then we oh yeah, and don't forget to have your on delete equals models.cascade for if it's empty.
Foreign key.
Only for foreign key only. So the next thing you guys want to go over many fields since we're here. All right, cool. Another thing that we noticed is that you have the ability for a movie to be liked by multiple users. So users can like multiple movies, and movies can be liked by multiple users. So that is a many-to-many relationship. So that's the syntax for it. The function that we call. We take in user, and then we decide to call the movies that are liked by users favorites. Many-to-many, the function itself sets it to where we don't have to create another table, which we could have used and simply had two foreign keys, and many field automatically connects our user to it as well. So we have our movies added, we kind of just comment that in.
We can add a comment for favorites as well.
And yeah, and let's add a comment for favorites. Cool.
So what is the so each class I think has like what 2 and 5 like hidden fields, the ID field and what else? You know what I mean? Was it each class? I know when we were talking about there's an 5 like ID and like it's just not
So
show.
yeah, it's just it's created for you. It's automatic.
Okay, yeah, okay, so the ID. Just the ID.
You don't have to specify ID.
Okay. Wasn't there something else of the user manager or is that for
Okay, so then when we want to start validating the form information, we are going to create a user manager
Right.
that we're going to use to override options.
All right, cool. Yeah, we can go ahead and jump right into that next.
Yeah.
So once we did this, we had our form. We basically went to our views, and we were like, okay, we made our register function, and we're like, okay, now we need to work on validation. So the first step to validation is to create this class right here called user manager. User manager takes in the models manager object, and so basically we can set the the user manager to have to be an object that has access to the user class's attributes.
Well, the user class
The
has an attribute called objects,
user
and it
class.
inherits from models.model.
Oh, okay.
It's normally by default equal to an instance of models.manager.
Got you. But we want our object's attribute of the user class to equal the user manager, which basically will have the models manager
Yes,
functions, but we want to be able
Right.
to add functions to that as well.
exactly.
Cool. All right. So this is my first time understanding that too. This is how we create our custom methods for objects. All right. So just remember that you must create the object of user manager and set that to objects in the class that you want to connect it to. And then we create our function, reg validator, which is registration validation. It takes in the self and form. Form is just our variable for request.post. And then we set, this is optional, but we set each um, attribute to the form version of it so that we have easier access to it. So we just username equals form username. It would be request.post username if we weren't using the form variable, right?
Yeah, if we were in
If we were in views, okay. If we were in views, it would be request.post username. But right now it's just form. We set those equal. We create our dictionary of errors, and then we start making our conditions. So if not username, this means it's blank. We set that equal for each one, and basically if it's blank, then we just we added the value to the key username in our errors dictionary. Username cannot be blank. And then we did that for each one. Then we checked the length of our username. We set it equal to less than 3, which means that they must have 3 characters. For email, we copied it, but you can go online and find the syntax for email rejects. And this just made sure that it had the right email format. And then this was user.objects.filter was the syntax used to compare the to see if there was any other emails in our user.objects database prior to they get registered. If there is one in there. If you use the filter option and it turns out that it matches, then the email exists, so please log in. Lastly, date of birth, we just use the greater than, like, is our date of birth greater than the time right now, which basically means you can't be born in the future. If you are, then time travel is not allowed.
Can we convert them to a string?
converted them both to strings.
Converting.
Well, we converted the datetime object to a string.
Okay, cool.
But the better way is to convert the string to a datetime object and then compare the two.
So for this case, we converted the datetime object to a string to compare it to whatever the user inputs. But the better way to do it is to convert the date of birth string into a datetime object and compare it that way. Okay, cool.
No, you would have to use, well, just use Google.
It would be like a function, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it'd be a function that you'd have to put date of birth in to make it a datetime object, and then you compare it that way. Go on to Google if you want to look up how to convert that properly. Then lastly, we had our our passwords. So password empty, of course, cannot be blank. The simple rule that they had was that the password must be 8 characters or longer. So we just said that if the password is less than 8, then of course make the password longer. For a confirmed password, of course, you need to have at least try to confirm it, and then we just set it equal. If the confirmed password doesn't equal the password, then we just respond to the passwords to that match. Following that, we did return errors, in which case we created a string in which we use user.objects.regValidator request post, and that's what runs for make sure that there's no errors.
So yeah, so there, the user.objects or reg validator, we passed in the request post. That whole function returns errors. Because
This whole function
models,
returns errors.
Yeah, in models it returns errors. So errors becomes that error.
Okay.
Okay.
So this errors is passed in and assigned to this errors,
Yes.
Okay.
and that's what we print.
Yes.
Alright.
Cool. All right. Let's see if they record it.